This is actually a really great start. Yesterday's live was full of people sharing their thoughts and opinions, which was fun. And it's really important on those moments to take a moment and reflect on our own thoughts and opinions. We have our own truth. We all, like, I often say this, we live in our own realities. And we come in with different lessons to learn and different gifts, and we're all different, and we can't keep comparing ourselves to others. Like, we are comparing the idea of suffering, like, oh, these people in this part of the world suffer more than others. But that's not necessarily truth. Yes, on an outside perception, that may look like it. But reality actually is we don't know the suffering internally of people. There's people who are very well off, who've created really a hell for themselves internally. And then there's people who are literally living maybe like a physical hell, but they have reached a level of liberation that, or even enlightenment, that others have not experienced. So I just want to invite you guys to be open-minded to other people's reality. Be compassionate. It's not about comparing whose suffering is more. It's about having compassion that as a human collective, being in human bodies, there is suffering. There is decay, death. Like, this is all inevitable. And so the short time that we have on earth, what are we going to do with that time? And I want to find as much peace in this lifetime as possible, and do as much good, because maybe I was talking about in other past lives, I judge less people's life experiences because I have come in with the belief that I've experienced countless past lives, and I've experienced maybe a gamut of experiences. So maybe in another past life, I was in jail. Maybe, like we were talking about karma yesterday too, of the law of cause and effect. And without judgment, it's like, I do this action, I will receive the consequences, good or bad. And it could even come in from another lifetime. So in this lifetime, I have a much easier life than maybe, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago, where well, that's a long time, thousands of years ago, where life was a lot more difficult to live. So, it's interesting too. I like the regulars. Was anyone here on from yesterday? Danny was here. Was there anyone else on from yesterday? Just write in the chat, yes, no. I would love to see. So, yesterday, it was very interesting because I came in with a topic in mind about fate and destiny. And I normally don't have topics. I come in with a very open hour to see what is alive and what wants to come through. But yesterday I was like, oh, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try and plan. And we were actually talking yesterday about how futile it is to plan. Well, for me, at least lately in the last good year. Hello, Elisa. Because anytime I make a plan, like, that does not work out. And I like to plan. I like to, manage my life, try and, create goals and create projects and plans for myself. And I'm always humbled. And yesterday I was humbled again. Like, oh yeah, JD, you want to put a label onto this live and have some theme that you deem is important to talk about, where we were talking about the most random tangents of things. And I just realized, wow, I'm so limiting, and it's impossible to put so many limits and constraints even into the next hour together. So this is why I love when you guys come together. This is such a precious time. And you guys, there's infinite possibilities you could be doing in this hour. Infinite. And you guys chose to be here for some reason. And I really honor that and acknowledge that. And even me, I have thousands of things I could be doing right now. I could be anywhere in the world. And I'm here because this is so precious for me to connect with you guys and talk about some really fun topics. Any topics. So another lesson I received yesterday was how we don't necessarily need to limit ourselves, even with a theme. So now, even in a couple days from now, I've changed the name of the Q&A. And even Danny, you've been with me for months watching my lives. I would love to know your opinion on and anyone, maybe at the end of this hour, some of your guys' ideas on what you would want to name this live, because I don't want it to be limiting. I want this to be just this open hour for anything spiritual to be talked about. So, so I'm curious for the meditators here right now, what's alive for you? What's in the collective energy that we could talk about? And everything's welcome. It's not one topic that we have to talk about. I love talking about intuition, living an authentic life, connecting to our own inner compass and our own truth. But that can come out in infinite topics. So I would love anyone to write in the chat, what's alive for you? And, I'll just speak about what comes through, or maybe some stories. I love to teach through storytelling. And so if a story comes through, I don't filter it. I just share it and trust that some message will be important for someone here. So this is just an open hour. Any comments, any questions, any topics that you guys would like to talk about? I'm curious. What's alive in the collective? Are you guys having is this time easy for you? Is this time more of a challenge for you? If it's a challenge, what is challenging right now? Taking a moment to just stop and be in the present moment like we're doing is very powerful. It's taking a moment to just stop and change our habit patterns. We tend to get into these habits that are so unconscious. And it's like, how would life be different? I always love to ask this question. If you lived consciously. Yeah. So share more, Mary. What do you want to say about that? And even everything conscious. I can unconsciously we were talking about chocolate cake this week, maybe even yesterday, but we're so happy to be adults, we can just eat chocolate cake. And it's like I can, back in the day, maybe like I was talking about how miserable I was like a decade ago. A decade ago, I would have eaten chocolate cake to fill this void, to feel some comfort, to, very unconsciously, like, just inhaling some cake or sugar. And I can still eat this cake now while I'm feeling happy in my life, but it can be conscious. So there's every action that we can do in life that can be conscious or unconscious. And sometimes I feel in my body, there's times where I really want chocolate and I don't shame myself for it. It's like, okay, body, I hope you digest this well. I hope this brings you all the joy and comfort. Also, it can also be a moment where I need to connect to my inner child. Do you guys, know about the inner child, working with our inner child, and every day building that connection with that little inner child, going, what do you need? So the inner child is like the young version of you that they're the young version of us may have experienced experiences or traumas or things that we weren't able to really digest as young children. And as adults, we can really reparent those parts of ourselves to bring healing again. So if we wanted, that some comment or something from our parents that they never gave us, we as adults have that power now to give that to ourselves. And sometimes, I choose to be consciously like, oh, I really want my little inner, I call it like sweet shady. Sweet shady really wants just some cake today. And I have the power to, to give that to myself. This is just on a physical level, but it could be a hug, I really want a hug and comfort. And I don't necessarily need to go outside and look for that outside of me. I can provide that comfort to myself. So does anyone here work with, Yeah, so Danny was saying, I love the focus you have on following your intuition and keeping the topic open. Even my therapy appointments are sometimes the best when I go in without an idea of what to talk about. Your body will take you where it needs to go, even if it's to cake. Yes, we love talking about chocolate cake. Yeah. I react without, so Mary says, I react without contemplating when under pressure. Need to stop and listen to my intuition. Be present. Yeah. Yeah, and this is a time you guys are giving yourself right now, is to be present. I love this. This hour brings me into the present. I can't be anywhere else, right? I can't be thinking about anything. It's like what it will come through, what's alive, what will people comment about? I have no idea. People sometimes are like, oh, what's your opinion? And I was like, okay, I have to just share my authentic opinion live in front of everyone. So it's a great time for you guys that you guys are giving to yourselves to just have a moment to contemplate some of these deep questions that I'm asking you guys, to take a moment to reflect. Often we're going in life, we're so busy, unconscious, and we don't stop like, why do I actually do that? Or to reflect on like, is that really the best for me? For the people who are listening right now, do you guys have a practice where you listen to your inner child? I really didn't think we'd talk about this today. Do you connect? Have you heard about this? Danny, do you talk about this in your therapy appointments? Or even my therapy appointment. Is that for you or you offer therapy? I don't know. I don't know if you're a therapist or not. You could be a therapist. So what do you guys know of this term? Because I've worked with people, and I'm not a therapist by any means. But I like to introduce people to this concept. And I've met people like when they touch their inner child, they have just so many emotions come forth and release. And because we have so much compassion and love and gentleness for a child, right? But we don't have that for ourselves. But what if we turned and gave that much love and compassion and grace to ourselves? Yeah, Danny confirms. Inner child work has been the most healing work I've experienced. It's amazing. Oh, yeah. And say more if you want, Danny. Like, what is the biggest lesson for you in this inner child work? I'm really curious. Yeah, to touch that part of yourself. Anyone else here? I would love to see in the chat, what you guys, why you guys showed up today. Any questions are welcome. This is really an open platform we can talk about anything spiritual, and I welcome it all. It doesn't have to be just positive things. It could be anything that you're going through in life, and I'll share, or other people can share some of their own guidance and stories. We can learn from each other, right? We can really learn from each other. So I love when people, yeah. Sam says, I'm working on trusting the flow of life, that everything is going to work out. I'm feeling disconnected from my intuition and deciphering when it's my inner voice versus fear. This is very common, Sam. Yeah, I have a course that's called Reconnect to Your Intuition, 12-day course. And it's like maybe 5-10 minute audios. And it actually, there's a day that speaks about, is it intuition versus fear, and how to decipher and know the difference, because that takes practice. Just this morning, I write, and it's so funny. I was writing, my whole chapter today was the flow of life and being in the flow, and what that looks like, and when we just stop swimming against the current, and we don't even need to do anything. We just stop. The current naturally turns us and lets us flow with ease down the river. And I just love that analogy, because in life we're taught, often as a society, we're taught to struggle and to admire struggle and to admire swimming up the current and all this effort. And I had to really deprogram that belief system, really deprogram it, because I felt the harder I had to work really hard for money. I had to work really hard, and going like, I can't control. I wish I could control everything, and I can't. I really can't. Like there's, I believe, a force much greater than us, and I have to it's so much easier just to tap in. And I'm an entrepreneur. So I was thinking about this the other day, actually this week, because I really want to be more of service. That's why I'm here. I just show up every day. This is just like an hour of volunteer time to connect with people. And this is fun for me. And I was thinking about this the other day of like, I don't have a physical boss because I'm my own employee. Well, I'm my own boss. I work for myself. But I realized my boss is source. And I just I've really shifted that perception just recently this week, and be like, and so now I come to work, like I, have my morning to myself, and then like 9:00 in the morning, I'm like, okay, like big boss up there, what do you want from me today? Like, okay, I'll work for you, but what do you want? What do you want for me to do today? And just really, it is hard, like when Life 101, I have all my 3D life things that I need to work on, mortgage and bills and all the stress of being an entrepreneur, and going like, okay, every day I have to work deeper and deeper on surrender and trusting the flow of life. Even when I make plans, they don't work out the way I thought they would. So every day, just deepening my surrender to, okay, boss, big boss, what's my task for today? What do you want me to do today? And it's been an adventure, and I just really trust. Like, it's like, okay, if you want me to do that, well, you need to send me work, or send me people, or send me, and I just keep like working. It's easy to surrender when everything is easy in life. My boss's source. I know, Kimberly. That's a new perspective I've really started like this week, where I'm like, I came back from my travels going like, okay, I don't have work. You have to be like, what do you want? I will work for you full time, but I need to be taken care of as well. And it's just the most amazing thing today. Like, just before this message, there was someone who reached out wanting to help me grow my company. Last night, someone just paid for a retreat at my home. Just unexpected things that is like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to, I can just be in the flow of life, being of service, and the right people and the right opportunities will come to me. And I'm playing with that. It's easy to speak it all. It's easy to say trust in the universe when everything is easy, but I don't have a full-time job. I've just been trusting the universe for the last like 14 years, having my own company, going like every day, going, okay, you need help, you need to help me. And then I remember having so much anxiety the first 5 years of my company. And then one day I was meditating, and it was probably, one morning I was meditating, probably with so much anxiety as well, so much anxiety. And then I received this message during my meditation, because I often say, praying is speaking to source, but meditating is listening. So we need to take time to listen as well. And I was I was meditating, trying to purify my mind and thoughts, but I received this message that said, JD, we have been helping you, what was it? JD, you've been taken care of for the last 5 years. Why don't you think we're going to take care of you for the next 5? And I went, oh, that's true. For the last 5 years, I was always able to pay my bills. Maybe the last minute, maybe like one contract short, like that just happened, But I was always taken care of. So do I want to be in that much anxiety for the next 5 years, or do I want to reach a level of surrender and trust? Now, it's not being passive. I'm not saying to sit back, being in the flow of life. Yes, I said stop and let the river bring you, flow down the river. But I'm not saying sit and do nothing. I'm not doing nothing. My days are, I put as much effort as I can into serving. So from 6 a.m. I'm up and trying to contribute. I'm writing books about really beautiful messages about spirituality and connecting to source, and how to live this intuitive life, and hopefully this will help someone. So I'm not doing anything. I am in life taking action, but it's more of this inspired action of the messages I receive and the guidance I'm given, and being open to the possibilities that come my way. And yeah, I'm trying to live that example of I know how stressful it is. And I have a sister who has a very stable job and really well paid, and a lot of stability in her life. And she doesn't, have anxiety like I do. And she's like, but JD, it's so situational. Like, you've created this life where you're in the unknown, every single day. And it's like, oh yeah. And it's not always fun to be in this unknown every single day. But it is fun, because it lets me tap into the magic of life. Things can happen that I would never have planned, never have even envisioned for myself. So it is a fun way. It is a fun way to live as well, to just step into the magic of life. And I'm not saying everyone leave life and leave work, but I'm saying I encourage you, those who are listening today, to practice. Just practice. Even an hour a day. Like you guys, where should I go for the next hour? Just practice dropping into the flow. Or meditating and going okay, my boss is source, as Kimberly says it perfectly. My boss is source. What do you want from me today, boss? How can I serve? How can I do your work? And your work could be in any way. It could be smiling at a stranger, helping someone, stopping, being present. There is huge healing in being present with someone. Just sitting, often we're not. We're distracted. We're on our phones. But just to stop what you're doing. It could be with your children, and just giving them 100% undivided attention. And it can be even surprising for people, I imagine. Right? Do you guys have this experience? I'm open to your comments and your questions as well. So going back to inner child work, Danny was saying the child work was difficult to lean into at first. But once I moved past the self-judgment, I discovered that there are 2 versions of myself that needed healing and to be heard. So now whenever I'm feeling a certain way, I close my eyes and see which little me needs compassion. Interesting. What are the 2 versions? I'm curious about that. Whatever you want to share, Danny, but the 2 versions of yourself seem really interesting. I would love to know more about that. Does anyone else have any stories have their own experience about inner child work. Or if you guys want to share about your surrendering to the flow of life, what that looks like for you. Are the people on today, are you guys really able? Are you confident in surrendering to the flow of life? Maybe give me a percentage out of 100. So 100% is you're 100% confident in surrendering to the flow of life. So write in the chat box a number, a percentage of how confident you are. It's fun to see. This is the work for me. Yeah. Well, yeah. But Sam, it's fun to check in right now. Like, what is your percentage today? Because tomorrow could be a different percentage. Next week could be a very different percentage. But it's fun. It's fun to do these check-ins. Where are we at right now? Yeah, 50%, Sam. That's great. That's good. Yeah, Kimberly, I'm still stuck in trying to control, so maybe 30%. Yeah, and that's so aware. You know, in life, it's good to be aware of where we're at. It doesn't have to be judgment. We don't have to judge ourselves. It's like, hey, today, I'm at 30%. Let's check in a year from now and all the new lessons I've received. Any other percentages? Any other percentages? For anyone new joining, we're really talking about what is the percentage that you feel in the flow of life? So anyone, I would love to hear more people's perceptions on that. A percentage of trusting in the flow of life. Or do you guys tend to control? You know, are you still trying to swim up the current? What happens? And it's okay. So Kimberly, you know, we'll talk with you, like, when you're trying to control, what are you trying to control exactly? What in life are you trying to control? And Sam, you know, share about your 50%. I would love to learn more about this. I'll give a moment. Yeah, Danny was talking about the inner child and how these two ages where you experience pain. Yeah, that's pretty good work. If you're able to pinpoint like two specific ages or two circumstances, right, that really affected you into adulthood. Yeah, that's profound work. If you can go back and even reframe and love that part of yourself and give yourself that compassion. Yeah, it's a lot of reframing, right? It's a lot of reframing that we can do. The power, you know, our words are our magic wand, and the power of our words, right? And so we can repeat this same thing over and over and over, or we could really reframe some of these past childhood wounds. I spoke about this in my other live. There is one story I read from the book, I think it's called Love Again. And it's talking about healing childhood wounds to be able to open your heart again to love. And there was this one story from this man who went to a wellness conference, like a coach, like a live talk, and he stood up and was like, "Oh yeah, all my brothers and sisters, they're in these really stable, beautiful marriages, and for me, I've never been married, and I can't keep a stable relationship, and all the things, and it comes from childhood." And he's like, "Yeah, like when I was a child, I learned that love can hurt. And one time when I was a little boy, I was like 8 years old, and I was standing around, like my childhood was so great, but I was standing around the bonfire with my family, and all of a sudden my dad started hitting me. And that was such a shock to my system and my belief about, like, my parents were just the most loving people, and I don't know why he just turned on me and started hitting me. And this boy turned into a man to turn into, I can't love and trust other people because the people who love me the most will just turn on me. And he's been carrying that belief all of his life. And his brother happened to be at this workshop with him and stood up and said, well, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that isn't the truth of that experience or that story at all. And he goes, can I share? I'm older and I remember that night clearly. And he goes, oh yeah, sure. Please share your story. I share your perspective of that night. I that was my memory. And the older brother said, well, our father started to hit you because there was like a spark that hit your pant, like landed on your pants, and your pants were starting on fire. So he like was patting the fire out so you wouldn't burn yourself. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I remember reading that story, probably crying, going like, wow. Yay, it's a beautiful story. Like, wow, I remember that because I can relate to that in my childhood. I had a beautiful childhood, and then going like, oh, this happened to me, and then I reframe that, and it affects me for the rest of my adult years. It's like, or that may not be truth. Like, let's just look back and reframe some experiences from our childhood as adults, going, that was actually not truthful. You know, there was another side of that coin that our little inner child self didn't see, you know. So yeah, it's fun that you have the option to go back, Danny, and look at two moments that created pain in your childhood that that have led to insecurities in your adulthood. Yeah, I think that's great. So I'm kind of on many different threads, like I am on every live, whatever comes up, whatever people talk about. So we're talking, for the new people here, we're talking about how confident you are in living in the flow. And I want you to write in the chat the percentage. So some are 30, 50. So I asked, then I went on to ask, well, what if you are like, what are you trying to control in your life? Like, I'm curious about, what do you want to control? And Sam goes, job insecurity, or sorry, that's not, she didn't write that. Sam wrote job uncertainty. It's funny how I just see whatever I want to see. Job uncertainty. And Kimberly wrote, my husband's behavior. Yes, we always want to change other people. Finances. Yes, how should I respond to such instability in the world? And planning, I know. Yes. Well, that's the ultimate question. The instability of the world, the uncertainty, right? The uncertainty. And there's always, hindsight. I'm trying to give myself grace and forgiveness on just financial things, like, oh, I invested here, or I should have invested more here, or I should have bought this, or I should have sold that. Or it's easy to say in hindsight when you look back and see the investments, or see what what happens. It's very easy years later, and I'm in a process right now working on forgiveness of like, oh, what if I invested more in that? Or what if I did this differently? Or what if, and really working on that myself right now, but we don't know what we don't know, and we're doing the best that we can in this moment. And so to just give ourselves grace for it all. I can relate, Sam, every day I have job uncertainty. I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs know that every day. Like, am I going to get a contract? Am I going to sell something? Am I going to, like, it's impossible. There's zero, as an entrepreneur, for entrepreneurs out there, or non-entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs live that uncertainty every day. You know, Danny, I think, do you work from home or do you work for yourself? Yeah. And even though the thing is, Sam, is like, I think about this a lot of like, oh, how wonderful would life be if I had this stability? Like, I've I I've never had a full-time job with benefits. Like, my sister goes and travels. She was traveling and she had all this vacation pay. I was like, what? You're getting paid to travel right now? It goes beyond me. It's just like a concept. Like, you're sick and you can still get paid? Like, I don't even have that in my reality. If I'm sick, I don't get paid. So I have to be really healthy. I have to make sure I take care of my health because I don't have that luxury, right? Ah, yes. AJ! Oh my gosh, I love AJ. I mentor entrepreneurs. Surrender is the hardest lesson to teach. It's so nice to see you. I'm going to call you again, AJ. I'm going to call you. Yes. Yes. Every time is so funny. Anytime I talk about surrender, AJ logs in. I haven't seen you in a while, AJ. Like, have you been on the other lives recently? Because literally we're just talking about surrender again today, and you must have picked up on that. Oh yes. Anytime I talk about surrender, I think 8 months ago when I was doing my last like more formal live before my break, I was in this, oh, I have to surrender, and I'm back. I'm still in it, AJ. I'm still in it, and I'm still talking about it. The discomfort of surrender, and I'm living it. Look, I'm living it. I'm in it, and getting more and more confident. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's nice, Danny. Yeah. You work for someone that must be nice. So, going back of like, that must be nice to have that stability, and yet it's just not in my nature every day to know what I'm gonna do. Like, I just can't. I need to be in, even though it's so uncomfortable, I need to be in the discomfort of the magic of life. It's just so fun to just be in the magic of, like, every day I log in and there's a few, I have to diversify. Let's see, like finance, you're talking about the instability of the world, as well, is like, well, yeah, I diversify in many different things. So if one thing doesn't work, then I have all my other things that could work. So that's helped me. I don't put all of my effort in one company, in one job, in one task. I really, and focus is probably better. If I put all my focus in one of those things, I'm sure I'd be a lot more successful. But I'm someone who, I just have to respect my character and my personality, and I like variety, and I like doing, if I did one thing full time, I would hate it. But if I do a little bit of everything, I love everything, and I want to live with joy and passion, and I want to be passionate about everything I work on, right? Yeah. Yeah, so nice to see you again, AJ. Yeah, freedom is scary if you're not used to it. Yes. And move to the beat of your own drum. Yes, a lot of people read that. So, yes, I was listening to a podcast about this a few months ago, of how I live a life of such freedom, where a lot of people look at that and go, oh, I want that. I want that. I wish I could travel the world. I wish I could, be an entrepreneur. I wish they have all these ideas. But the level of freedom that I do have is so paralyzing. It can be so paralyzing. Like, it is so challenging. It can be so challenging to just completely, like, just completely surrender to the void and go like, okay, you source it, you're my boss, where do I need to go? Lead me, guide me. I have to take action. I will take necessary action, but it sounds fun. It's this idea of like, oh, that sounds fun, but actually, if you live it, it's yeah, it's very unnerving and very what are some of the words I could say about it to describe that level of freedom? um I hope some words will come to me that will better describe this experience, right? Yeah. Yeah. So AJ, it's so fun to see you back again. Do you have any wisdom? I always want AJ to be a Insight Timer live talk presenter. Do you have any wisdom that you would like to share with the group today, more about surrender? You know, idea of control. We're talking about control and being in the flow of life. You know, what do you say that really helps people the most to really trust in the flow? Because yeah, finances. Who here are afraid of finances right now? You know, are people here stressed about finances? Could be yes or no. No would be great. If you guys, if I see lots of no's, that'd be amazing. I would love to see it in the comments. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even it's interesting because banks, they don't like entrepreneurs. That's my perception. That's my story. Especially when you're wanting to get mortgages. And I find that so fascinating because for me, I've had a company for 14 years and I have many clients, not just one. You know, if you're an employee, you have like one boss, right? But I consider I have like many bosses and then, source, but many bosses. And so if one stops a contract, that doesn't affect my business that much, because I have many others. And I have like 14 years of business experience. And you look at a lot of resumes and people work at a company for 2 or 3 years. So that isn't stable in my brain. But anyways, the world is backwards. So let's not get into that. Yeah. So Kimberly says, even though things are very stable for me currently, I worry about future changes. Interesting. Yes. We're never ever just, is there something that you've just created this fear about your future, Kimberly? Or is there something really imminent that's coming that will change your future? Or is this just a general fear that you have about the unknown? Because that's what they say, anxiety is really being future focused, more fear of the future. Whereas more depressive people they're stuck in the past. Now, again, I'm just overgeneralizing things. I'm not a therapist by any means, but I tend to be more anxious. I tend to be more fearful of the future, of what will happen. But in the moment, to stop and have gratitude. Like I'm hard on myself of like, oh, this investment, and that investment, and this business move, and that business move. But it's like, can I just stop and actually appreciate where I've come from? Like I started with nothing. So can I see, okay, if I did this investment, to just have gratitude for that instead of like, wishing I had done it differently. Like, oh, I did a good move there. Can I just first stop and appreciate that actually? So I'm really working on that as well, Kimberly, but working on the aspect of gratitude and being grateful for actually the things and the abundance and even just the stability that you currently have, right? Just stop and take a moment of gratitude. So let's go back to talking about surrender. And AJ adds, surrender is a counterintuitive concept. The mind is conditioned to control. The truth is that we are not the mind. The mind is based on fear. It shapes our lens of life. The only true peace is here, now, this moment. Yes. This is a great reminder, AJ. Even like Kim, if you stop in this moment and go like, looking at the five senses of like, okay, just bringing yourself to the moment of your senses. What can I hear, touch, taste, feel, just boom, bring yourself to the moment. Am I okay? And also just, yeah, loving that. The truth is that we are not the mind. This morning in my writing, I started talking about the concept of the observer mind. And the observer mind is really like taking a back step and being aware of awareness. So when you're meditating, it's like, well, we are the mind that are thoughts, but then there's another mind that's awareness. And so to be aware of our thoughts, right? So, it's okay to do during meditation. Okay, I feel pain. I don't have to associate with the pain. I can observe that pain and be equanimous and neutral to that pain and not be so reactive to it, because our minds are always creating more stress for ourselves. We have pain. There's pain. Okay, fine. But then we react to the pain, which amplifies the pain, right? But we can just be neutral to pain. Just the pain is pain. Why do we have to judge it? Like a lot of times people have this addiction to food, right? And I used to have a huge addiction to food. I loved food. And so I would be very attached to it. But really, I got to the point where it's like, well, being hungry, and then sometimes I'd overeat, or I'd eat it's chocolate cake. Let's go back to chocolate cake. I'd eat like garbage and like sugar, and I would feel so bad. And then I realized, okay, a full belly is a sensation, but an empty belly is another sensation. And why am I judging one sensation more important than another? They're both just sensations, and they're both uncomfortable, actually, if you really are truthful. Sometimes if I overeat or eat something I don't like, my body is in a lot more pain than when I fasted and I'm just, on water or something like that. So just being neutral to these sensations, just being observant to them and being neutral to them and not letting them control us. And again, as I brought up earlier in this live of living consciously, taking conscious steps, taking conscious actions in what we do. So the observant mind is great when you're meditating. Sure, I can observe the pain as it passes or whatever, or this thought as it passes through my mind, whatever. But then to bring that observant mind to the daily life, and I did this while I was traveling. Okay, let's just watch myself. Watch what is going to unfold. Every day was so unknown. It was so I was in a new country, I was traveling for 6 weeks, and I took 10 different flights in 6 weeks. It was crazy. It was so crazy. I would have one night at the Egyptian pyramids, and the next day I'd be in Morocco. The day before I was swimming in the Ganges. It was crazy. And it was such a shock to my system and my brain that I had to be okay, I have to surrender. I have to just be in the flow and observe how life is going to unfold, because this is so impossible for my mind to even predict the next second, right? So we can practice this at home, or just at home, living our daily life. Kimberly, it's okay, I'm aware of my fear of the future. Okay, even give yourself compassion. This is survival, we can give ourselves loving compassion for that. And we don't need to loop. We don't need to be in that loop. We can get out of that loop and go, okay, I see that stress. And, right, let's bring ourselves back to experience peace. And as AJ mentioned, the only way we can experience peace is bringing ourselves back to the here and now. And there's so many teachers, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, and all these books. There's, so many teachers of this. And it's just a nice reminder. We know this. Just bring yourself to the present moment. We don't have to react. Okay, do a body scan, check in. At my retreats after yoga, this is what I do. I go, okay, everyone after their yoga, their meditation, I invite them to do a body scan and to get into the habit of looking in. Is there any part of are there any organs? Is there any part of my body that it feels off? Is there any part of me emotionally that needs a little bit more love and care? And practicing on a daily basis. Even if it's for one moment, Kimberly, one moment in your day, I'll check in with my body. What does it need? Or, even better, I check in with my inner child. What does that inner child need today? And just through daily practice, we can really help ourselves get out of these loops and negative habit patterns. Right? Yeah, there's some hearts. Yeah. Yeah. Brooke says, I was recently diagnosed with a pretty big diagnosis. I feel totally detached from it, just doing what the docs say is next, wondering if I'm in denial or is this a practice really working? Well, how do you feel about that, Brooke? There's some people, relief. That's amazing. I think that's a good feeling. That's one of one of the main questions my mom always asks me, like often, is when I experience something, I'm still just stumped. Yeah. Relief is beautiful. Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Yeah, you're a perfect example, Brooke. It's not about the outer circumstances. As humans, we tend to be very judgmental of what circumstances look like. And without the judgment of it, just seeing reality as it is. Okay, I have a diagnosis. There's been people who say, like, that's the best thing that's ever happened to them. The best thing that's ever happened to them is when they learned they had some very, fatal disease or whatever they received, because it just brought them back into the present moment. And they appreciate life more. Yeah, right? And for you, you're saying you don't define yourself with that. It's like, sure, it's like, you don't have to say, I am this. It's like, okay, I'm experiencing that. I have this. I had to learn to refrain that for anxiety instead of, I'm anxious. I'm an anxious person. No, sometimes I experience a little bit of anxiety. I've had to reframe that a lot. So many things to say about your comment, Brooke. Thank you for sharing. But back to what my mom always loves to ask is when there's any situation that happens in my life, or if I need to make a really big decision, she goes, like, do you feel relief? Do you feel relieved by that decision? And relief is for me, a very big telltale sign of like, yeah, that's my path. I need to walk, when I feel relieved. So this is a beautiful practice. This is such a beautiful practice, Brooke. And again, about not judging. I had this friend a young girl, she loved snowboarding, and she had a snowboarding accident. And the doctor, she had to go to the hospital. I think she had a concussion, and the doctor said, well, this was pretty big. And one day your brain may just forget how to walk. And they're like, what? Like, who says that to a child? Like, she was like early teens. And 6 months later, I would not believe this story if I didn't know her, but 6 months later, she was walking in high school and her brain forgot how to walk. And she just fell to the ground. And she's been in a wheelchair ever since. And she is just one of the coolest girls ever, because she was just like, straight A's and really like into all the sports and just this vibrant woman. And then now she, for the rest of her life, she did many tests and she tried to do all these therapies to like, help her walk again. But now she's just been in a wheelchair I've known her for a decade, so over a decade now. And when I talked to her, she goes, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I was like, what? Just mind-blowing. Like, we don't think that would be good. We're like, for me, that would be the biggest fear I have. And, but for her, it's like, no, my life is so much better now. Her life is even more full. The amount of, she was like in the Paralympics, like just crazy things that her life has gone on, because of this. And so again, I invite you, like, what if we don't judge our circumstances the way we do, and we just look at things differently, or reframe our some past childhood wounds that we could look at it in a different way, or go, is that the real story? Did I really get that story accurately? Or being conscious of our sensations, our body sensations, and being not so reactive to them. To be, okay, I'm in pain, but I don't need to react to that pain, to be neutral to the pain. Or hunger, I don't need to react to that hunger, to be neutral to hunger. All these things, or if we're in addictions, like, to just observe them, observe these reactions in our body without reacting, and to try live in a more conscious way. Me again this week, I'm changing